climate change is something that we all know is happening, whether it's the droughts, whether it is extreme temperatures, whether it is the cyclones that are taking place. It's a major challenge to humanity in that sense. How is it viewed from an India perspective? You were India's lead negotiator. How do we look at climate change?
So, Arjun, let me say what the world says. Perhaps one of the greatest challenges that the world has faced. And we are talking about anthropogenic climate change caused as a result of our own action.
Right,
Now, there's a very simple element. You burn fossil fuels, you generate energy, you become richer. That's been the model of the day.
right, right.
Why is it that in several countries in the world, the richer countries, which accepted in 1992 that in a sense our industrialization is the cause for the world facing this and we will accept responsibility and do what we do, the United States has never been willing to take on this legal responsibility. President Trump has, for a second time, pulled.
He doesn't believe that there's anything known as climate change.
Precisely, he's used many expressions. He's even now stopping US scientists from participating in research, etc. Now, it goes back to the simple thing. You burn fossil fuels, your fossil fuels, it's easier to generate money, you get power.
Right.
I don't want to get into his understanding because how can I answer that question? If a scientist tells me this is the problem, if a good doctor tells me that this is the problem, I have to believe him. I can't start second guessing.
So the statistics are, if I'm correct, it's the average temperature of the world has gone up by 1.5 degrees in the last 100 years. And every decade since the 1980s, we are seeing a slight increase in the temperature, right? And so that has a lot of, then that manifests itself into, rising oceans and so many things which are there.
You're absolutely right. And we accept this, isn't it? If I started saying that this is not happening, I want to see the thermometer, I want to see how you do it, then where is the answer to that?
Right.
But if you accept this, accept your scientists, Indian scientists included out there, then you would try to see this being a global problem, what can I do globally? Now, I'm going to take 30 seconds of your time to say something else. In the developed world, especially in the United States, have we perhaps not been very successful in reaching out to many more people by saying that this climate change is not just an esoteric phenomena of fuels, fuel companies, global warming, and so on, and that it's not adversely impacting you? There are issues such as health, there are issues such as droughts,
And
etc.,
the forest fires we saw.
which are
now-
affecting you directly.
Right.
And so, therefore, please be cognizant that this isn't only a matter that, oh my God, it costed me $2 a gallon to buy fuel. Now I have to move to renewables and the cost will be 2.5. It's too expensive. Why should I bother? No, you should, because you are already bearing the costs of these droughts, diseases, etc., etc. Be more mindful and be more mindful of what happens. We perhaps have not been particularly great in being able to make this outreach. That's beside. But let's remember, Arjun, because of the nature of that equation, fossil fuels, energy, GDP, climate change negotiations are perhaps the most important power game of nations. It is a clear case of power game. The developed world would not like to lose its hegemony over the world power. The developing world would like to develop, which in some senses other people will say, come on, so you want to be part of the power game. The Chinese obviously have made that point very clearly. And people look at us, they look at Indonesia, Brazil, and others in the same eyes. We may not agree with that, but they say, come on, you also want your place on the high table, isn't it?
Right.
And so, therefore, this being a power game of nations, despite its existentialist threat to mankind and humankind, the fact is we have to understand that yes, it's a power game, but it's a power game which has a larger connotation which threatens all of us. So, shall we collaborate even within the limits of trying to play the power game? And that's what we have seen right from the beginning. Let me take a few minutes of your time. In 1992, in a very unique time in recent history, a global sweet spot of international relations, collapse of the Soviet Union, the US being the superpower, they agreed to the UN FCCC. One country, one vote, no veto. They agreed to differentiated responsibilities and they agreed that the developed world will do what it can and give the developing world a chance to develop using
Right.
current technology. Within a few years, they started rolling back. Of course, the obvious, by then obvious rise of China came into your eyes. You noticed it. If the acronym BRIC had not been floated by Jim O'Neill of Goldman Sachs, perhaps we wouldn't have been in anyone's eyes. But it woke us up also, isn't it?
Right.
Didn't it make you and me start feeling much better?
Right.
That, oh man, I've come places. The Chinese, of course, everybody recognized us. Systemic challengers,
Right.
competitors, etc. And so then started the game that yes, we'll do our bit, but you must also contribute, no matter that you still need to burn enough fossil fuels, do things.
So, for people who are not well versed with what climate change is, I think 80% of climate change is now being attributed to fossil fuels. The electricity that we generate, whether it's for the lights in this studio, virtually every aspect of our life. How successful have we been in changing the way we actually use our fuel? Because now 25% of it is renewable, but the pace of demand from India, from China, from a lot of the developing world, if I can still use this word, it's going up.
Arjun, you're absolutely right. The thing is, it took years, decades, century to develop how to use fossil fuels efficiently. Overnight, very unlikely that we'll be able to develop alternatives. But we've done well. In India, we've taken massive targets. We are pushing renewables in a big way. But the Europeans have done that also to a large extent. Are the Americans doing it? They aren't. The Chinese have grandfathered the use of fossil fuels. So today, even if they say we are cutting back, the fact is, over the last 30 odd years of the UNFCCC, they took advantage of the free ride that they had and built huge amounts. And you can't tell people to cut back on what they've got. There is no doubt that we need to look at newer technologies. We need money for that. Look, in my personal opinion, solar energy, etc., are important, but I think what we really need are fuel substitutes. Is hydrogen the way out? I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah, it's
scientist.
very early days.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
You can have a bus or a car.
clarity nuclear. I don't know again the answers to
Right.
that. But human ingenuity, as they discovered the use of coal and oil, etc., now need to work and say, this one which generates carbon dioxide, no, let's look at alternate fuels to fuel our economy and take things forward. We need to work on that. We need money. There's no doubt. And money is in a short supply in the developing world. But we all need to pitch up and do what we can. The developed world needs to understand that action on climate change will be an action which is good for them, and I dare say also good for their economies.
So, Ambassador Puri, the climate change talks or conference of parties take place now every year. In one way, of course, there are serious negotiations happening, but they've also, the perception that a lot of people have is they become events for networking and to have a good time. How do you view that?
Arjun, you're absolutely right, and many people say this. Look, UN negotiations, as the idea of the negotiations itself grows, it obviously becomes places for networking, etc. The UN's annual meeting in New York in September is, for example, a beautiful example of this. Look, let's understand something about climate change and these COPs, as they are called, Conference of Parties. If today you and I are discussing climate change, if in this discussion between you and me on foreign policy, you have thought fit to ask me 20% of the questions on climate change, it would not have been happening if for the fact that climate change would not be on the global agenda.
Yeah, you're
So it
right.
is the only subject matter over the last 20 years where heads of state and government have regularly gone of UN meeting. Do they go for anything else? They don't. They go for this on a global scale because of its importance. And as I said, the linkage of burning fuels are creating energy and GDP, because it's linked to who you are, your economy, and so on. It's of interest to every single country in the world. One or two may want to opt out, but interest it is of everyone. And so these particular negotiations, their global aura has resulted in all this. Now, India has taken two big challenges for itself. The first one is Viksit Bharat by 2047. Obviously, 100 years to India's independence, you want to be a developed country. The other challenge that we've taken on, and Prime Minister Modi announced this in Glasgow, was net zero by 2070, i.e., India's emissions versus our absorption will be all neutralized. We will not be contributing to the global stock of greenhouse gases, principally carbon dioxide. Extremely difficult challenges. Now, I fully understand that, and in fact, I have worked all my life on ensuring that in the negotiations for a developing country like India, there is policy space which is not constricted. And so we are not put under the scanner to reduce GHG emissions because we have so many miles to go in terms of our development. Our per capita emissions are half of the average of the world. And we are a country where we may be the fifth largest economy. We are only at $2,500 per capita.
Right.
So much needs to be done. And so, therefore, as a good part of the world, as a responsible member of the world, we don't want to be put in a global agreement framework whereby our policy space is restricted. And we've been working hard on that. But we have also taken these ambitious targets for ourselves. We are working hard on that. We've said by 2030, we will try to ensure that half of the capacity for generating electricity in India comes from renewable sources. We are working hard on hydrogen fuels. We are also looking at small modular reactors. We're doing all of that. In fact, we are the only country among the G20 which at least has met its own nationally determined commitments under the Paris Agreement COP21 from 2015. Most others are lagging behind. We want to lead by example, but at the same time also go for our own major goal, which is Viksit Bharat by 2047. That does mean the requirement for using fuels as they are. We've also been working on decoupling the use of GHGs from GDP by using more renewables, etc. So we are making all the efforts we can. But let's be very clear. And today the EU delegation's visit here highlighted that we'll work on green hydrogen, we'll work on renewables, we'll work on technology.
Right.
We do need global collaboration. We want to be part of the responsible world which ensures sustainability, but we seek global collaborations, and that is
Right.
important.
And India, even now, pretty much majority of its electricity comes from fossil fuels. It's coal, right? And we've been really mining away, and electricity consumption is going up.
Yeah.
Of course, the goal is by 2030, you want renewable. I don't know how achievable that is at this point of time. It's not even 5 years from now. And then, there's a contradiction in terms when we are trying to sell or what we're trying to encourage electric vehicles, and you say that emissions will come down. Unfortunately, most of the electric vehicles are being charged by fossil fuels. So I don't know how that kind of works, unless you have a solar power kind of a transmission line.
So, Arjun, you're right. The buzzword is you electrify all sectors of the economy and you decarbonize electricity production.
Right.
That's the buzzword. Very easy as a slogan, difficult to do, but you must make the effort.
Right. And the effort is being made. I mean, given where we stood, say 20 years back, we've certainly made a lot of effort. And
We've been global
something
leaders.
global leaders. We also
Solar power.
Right.
We are a role.
We were one of the people, one of the countries that set up the solar alliance as
Yeah,
well.
we by doing all these actions, the cost of solar power has come down for the entire world. And many in the developing world look to us and say, hey, you can do it, we can do it.
Right.
And we've done all this.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching this clip. As you know, we are taking a deep dive into some complex issues and decoding them for you. So don't forget to check out more content on our channel. And also, we'd love to hear back from you with your comments and your suggestions. So let's explore together.